Good evening and welcome to The Big Picture, where we take a deeper look into one of the day's top stories. And today, of course, we're taking a look at Indo-Bangladesh relations and also the Modi-Mamata dynamics. Now, with the land boundary agreement complete, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is beginning work on the Teesta water sharing agreement with Bangladesh. On the 11th and 12th of August, Modi and the West Bengal Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, will be meeting in New Delhi to take stock of things after the land and population exchange and work out a checklist for Teesta, which is tougher given the implications for West Bengal farmers. Well, to help us understand this story better, we have in studio editor of Catch News, Bharat Bhushan, here with us. We've got Smruti Pattanaik, who's a research fellow at the IDSA. We've got Sanjay Bhardwaj as well, assistant professor of South Asian Studies at JNU, and also former ambassador Veena Sikri. In fact, ma'am, if I could start with you, talking about the Indo-Bangladesh land boundary agreement, a significant one at that, historic. How much did Mamata's government actually help Modi achieve this big, diplomatic achievement?
I think definitely Mamata Banerjee coming on board and the good rapport between Prime Minister Modi and Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee helped a lot in pushing through the land boundary agreement, in pushing it through the Indian Parliament. Because the protocol to the land boundary agreement had already been signed in September 2011 when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh went to Dhaka. But it could never be passed as the necessary constitutional amendment through the Indian Parliament. There were objections from Assam, from the BJP unit of Assam, and there were objections from Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. And Prime Minister Modi was successful in overcoming both these sets of objections and pushing it through. Now, of course, the focus is very much on the implementation of the land boundary agreement because, after all, even in West Bengal, Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has received a handsome package of money to rehabilitate around 14,000 former Bangladesh citizens who are now opted to stay in India. And to integrate the land records, the education, healthcare facilities, electricity, giving them jobs, providing industry, small and medium industry. So it is a task. It is, and the time has been given till the end of the year, till November, to finally decide, because there will be some people also coming from the Indian enclaves in Bangladesh, around maybe 900 or so. So to integrate them also, to rehabilitate them as well. So this will be a task, and I think the successful implementation of the land boundary agreement will be a good a checkpoint to see how the future of the goodwill between India and Bangladesh, because this completion of the process has created enormous goodwill in Bangladesh for India. It shows that Prime Minister Modi has agreed to walk the talk, and this is being seen very well. So the implementation will really be the icing on the cake. And certainly after that, everybody will look forward to the next aspect, which is the Teesta river water sharing
Absolutely.
agreement.
Bharat sir, if you could give us an idea, West Bengal, of course, is pitched by Modi, as the launch pad for his Act East policy. How much can Mamata help him achieve that?
Well, if you look east and act east, you cannot ignore West Bengal. Why only West Bengal? You can't ignore any of the northeastern states. So cooperation of all these states is needed, and I think it will be forthcoming because it will be beneficial to all these states.
All right. Sanjay, if you could give us an idea now that we are looking forward to Teesta, give us a sense, 2011 is when, of course, the agreement was to be signed, but then we, of course, knew what Mamata Banerjee had done. She didn't take part in the delegation, and eventually, Dr. Manmohan Singh had to come back without signing that agreement there. Just give us a sense of, the history that, at least as far as the Mamata government is concerned, with the Bangladesh government about the Teesta Water Pact, and, what we would be looking forward especially.
See, well, you look this India-Bangladesh relations in totality, there are three issues are involved when you are dealing with Bangladesh. First is the humanitarian civil rights aspects were very much there when we are going to exchange the enclaves and all that. The second issue was the national security issues, where the security issues were involved and where the land boundary agreements we have taken. The third issue is very important, is the developmental issues. And I think last 2 decades, or you can say that Modi government has emphasized more, but last 2 decades we have taken the developmental approach rather than market-centric approach in dealing with our neighboring countries. Here it comes well when we are talking about the water sharing issues. there is a certain, a very major shift in India's policy towards its water issue vis-a-vis Bangladesh when we are dealing, in fact, that we have taken more lenient approach in dealing with the water issue. When we are taking the issue of 1996 Ganges Water Treaty, that Ganges Water Treaty was far ahead what the UN agreement, UN Convention on Water issue was signed in 1997. In the Ganges Water agreement, the principle of parity, equality, share was maintained. The augmentation issues were also maintained, and it had also paved a way to resolve the further another issues with Bangladesh. And from there, India had a shift in its policy towards Bangladesh in water issue, and we have reached from bilateralism to a basin-wise approach, that we will take a basin-wise approach. And very much when I was looking into and following these Teesta water negotiations, that Bangladesh were not actually expecting that much what India was giving them. They were expecting there would be 40–60% of sharing formula, but when the agreement they have reached on negotiations, it was about 50–50% sharing formula. Why? Because India started adopting a lenient approach towards neighbor, because India wants to take them in the developmental board, that we will develop together, we will prosper together. And I think that's the reason that we are not going to take the market-centric approach, that rather we are taking more developmental-centric approach in our policy.
Smruti, could you give us a sense as to what, of course, Bangladesh is looking at? They were, of course, hopeful with the fact that Mamata Banerjee visited them in Dhaka just last month, along with Prime Minister Modi, and she did, hint while, that dinner with the Prime Minister that, it may be in the works very soon. Give us a sense as to what Bangladesh hopes to gain from this, because we do know that they definitely need the water much more than this side of the border.
I think, it's not that they need the water more than us. That there is nothing like that. But definitely there is an expectation, especially that Teesta Deal will be signed soon. And that is probably one of the reasons why, because Mamata Banerjee visited Dhaka twice. One on the 21st of February for, to attend the 21 February, which is the language mother language day, and then later she visited just before Prime Minister's visit, and that is where she assured Sheikh Hasina and said that don't worry, Teesta Deal will be done. So I think if she has said that, and taking into consideration the kind of politician she has been, I think probably something which is probably being worked out. And water remains a very significant issue for Bangladesh, because the manner in which the narrative in Bangladesh, most of the time it trend to say that if there is a drought in Bangladesh, then India is responsible. If there is a flood in Bangladesh, so India is releasing excess water. So somewhere, this is very, very interlinked, India and the water factor, the agriculture and everything. So therefore, when you speak of water and you speak that, India is very reluctant to share water and doesn't follow the parity, the kind of 50-50 kind of parity pattern, which was followed in the Ganges Water Treaty. So there is a lot of, then this issue of you being a big neighbor and you should be magnanimous kind of narrative comes into play. So I think Teesta is one of the issue which actually, in fact, replaced the Farakka issue, because one kept on listening in Dhaka that Farakka is a major issue. The water sharing in Farakka actually is not, is actually not functioning properly, and Bangladesh is not getting the water as per the share. So I think Teesta has taken over. So probably, since we have already promised and there was this public publicity regarding the 50-50% share, I really do not know how can India and Bangladesh agree to something which is lesser. And if it is less, whether it will be acceptable to Bangladesh remains a big question. So how to maintain the expectation which was raised in 2011 and see that in 2015, to a very large extent, we are able to meet the Bangladeshi expectation.
Bharat sir, what has changed, as far as Mamata's policy is concerned? What is it? Since 2011 to now, what has changed? Apart from technicalities, definitely the politics at play as well.
Well, 2011 September, when she refused to go with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, there were by-elections due in North Bengal. So she had that in consideration. She had not been briefed by a politician. The then NSA had gone and briefed her. Had a political person gone and had a dialogue with her, she would have agreed. In terms of what has changed on the ground, nothing has changed on the ground. That agreement was reached in 2011. The same agreement, it's an interim agreement for 10 years, will be signed. It is basically for sharing water during the lean season, October to April. Water is not divided at the borders. Water is divided where you store it. So India has a barrage called Ghazaldoba, where the water will be divided, and it will be received at Dalia barrage in Bangladesh. At Ghazaldoba, the sharing will be 75-25. 25% for India, 25% for Bangladesh. Then there is 100 odd kilometers up to Dalia, where further recharge takes place. So by the time the water is measured at Dalia, it is 50-50. That 50-50 is not going to change. And if this agreement comes through, it will become a template for 54 other major rivers that India and Bangladesh share. We share hundreds of minor rivers, but 54 major rivers will be there. And that will become the template. For 10 years, we will collect data on water flow and then decide what to do 10 years later. So it's an interim agreement. I don't think any technicalities are involved any longer. Whatever is happening on the ground, because water, nobody can store water, that water is going into Bangladesh. That will be what is de facto will become de jure. It is also wrong to say that Bangladesh claims that there is a drought and India is to blame. The fact is that in between October and April, if you don't release water from Ghazaldoba in India, there is no water to distribute at Dalia. And that is the food basket of, rice basket of Bengal. You know, the 3 districts of Gaibanda, what are they called? Rangpur, Lalmonirhat. Rangpur itself, you know, 7.5 hectares of land is dependent on this. So Bangladesh's concerns are genuine concerns. India recognizes them. I think technically nothing has changed. The water engineers on our side, the water commissioner of India, the water commissioner of Bangladesh, they have no differences at all on this agreement. I think it was badly managed in 2011. I hope it is better managed this time.
All right. So do you see, Veena ma'am, do you see this pact actually taking place by this year at least?
Well, you know, I must say, I think the question is a little more complicated than that. Because I think that in 2011, there were 2 prime considerations. One, of course, as Bharat has mentioned, that it was because of, you know, some political aspects, who briefed a chief minister, etc. But there is another aspect, which is that Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has been saying that I can guarantee water to Bangladesh only if Sikkim guarantees water to me. And Sikkim is building some 20 plus hydroelectric power plants on the Teesta River. So, of course, these are supposed to be run-of-the-river power plants, and they say they will not affect water flows, but this we do not know. So this is one aspect. It's an interstate aspect within India, and certainly I think the discussions between Prime Minister Modi and Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee will bring this aspect into focus. There is another aspect that I want to bring about. There is an aspect in there is an agreement already agreed upon in September 2011, but it was not signed. Now, there is a concept of the E-flow, the environmental flow of the river, that you have to guarantee. It's not just a 50-50% sharing. There's actually what Bangladesh has been asking for the first time in the bilateral water negotiations between India and Bangladesh, the concept of reserving as much as 20% of the total flow in the lean season for the environmental flow. That means that flow has to go regardless of what happens. Now, in a drought year, that could very much adversely affect the availability of water in India. So this is a sensitivity that is being taken on board, but the concept of E-flow, environmental flow, is now almost internationally an accepted one, so some aspect will have to be kept for that. The other aspect that I'd like to focus on, which is I think a very important aspect, that after all, the Teesta is one of those rivers where in the dry season, the flow comes down to 10% of the total flow. So 90% of the flow of the water is going in 5 months of the year, and 10% of the annual flow in the Teesta is going in 7 months of the year. This aspect of 7 months dry season is actually a much longer dry season than was in the Ganga Water Treaty, because that was only a 5-month dry season, which is now a 7-month dry season. So I think that actually for a successful agreement on Teesta River, there is a very important aspect that Bangladesh and India have to focus on, which is common river basin management. This aspect of common river basin management was first time agreed between India and Bangladesh only in September 2011 during Manmohan Singh's visit. Before that, India had not agreed to it. Now, if we take this into account, then we have to look at augmentation of water flows in the Teesta. We have to look at conservation of water in the Teesta. And we have to look at effective use of water in the Teesta. Now, exactly what Bharat said about rice, the rice bowl of Bangladesh. Yes. Now, rice is a highly water-intensive crop. So, if you're going to grow rice in the dry season, then the water is just not going to be available. So, actually, if Bangladesh and India want an amicable, properly implementable agreement on the Teesta, which will work, workable agreement, I think they have to look at these very serious aspects of even cropping patterns and having crops in the dry season which don't use so much water. Yes. So it's a technical matter, and even before the agreement is signed, I think a lot of technical discussions should go on continuously. And of course, finally, it's the whole question of quantification, because it's easy to talk percentages.
50-50, yeah.
But percentage of what? You know, that is the key point.
Yes.
And that joint hydrological
Similar concerns were also raised by the Teesta Bachao Andolan, wasn't it, Smruti? Give us an idea really of what are the concerns on Bangladesh's side as well when it comes to this agreement per se, and also the fact that they have been saying that for the past few years, the water levels of Teesta has been going down further and further. So that's a big concern for them too, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, in fact, as per the report, some of the media report says that last year in 2014, the flow of the water from, from September to April probably, it was 500 cusecs. And this year it has reduced to 350. So therefore, I think when any water agreement takes place, probably it is necessary that the two countries needs to take into account what is the flow? Because otherwise, unnecessary, you are going to, you are giving rise to expectation. Like suppose tomorrow there is a 50-50 kind of sharing which is agreed between the two countries, as Bharat was also saying that probably that is something which both the countries may agree at the end of it. The thing is that if tomorrow there is a reduction of the water flow, because nobody knows what is the kind of flow which is coming in, then again it will give rise to suspicion that probably India is withdrawing. So instead of it being a confidence building measure, it will affect the relation. One has seen the kind of bitterness the Ganges Water Treaty had generated at one point of time. So one doesn't want to go through that. Definitely the sharing of Teesta remains a very significant, probably could be one of the template which can be agreed to other 54 rivers which the two countries are sharing. So therefore, that needs to be taken into account, because agriculture is important not just on the side of Bangladesh, but also on the side of India also. Like, like Bharat was also saying that it was not just, a treaty which is going to be signed between India and Bangladesh, because if you look at it, why West Bengal becomes important in this kind of dealing is the state subject. Agriculture is a state subject. Interstate, international river are a union list subject. So how to actually deal with a subject where the state gets affected and state has legitimate right. I think that has created a lot of problem. You can go ahead with the international water sharing, but what happens to the agriculture, which is actually the domain of the province in India. So
I think this is the reason why perhaps, the Modi-Mamata Bonomi is also being seen in a much keen way than before, especially with her problems that she was having towards the fag end of the Manmohan Singh government. Sanjay, if I could come to you and very quickly, if you could give us an idea, we've got the LB agreement, which of course is in place now, the exchange of enclaves, taking place. There's a lot of work, of course, that needs to be done on that front. But, it was successfully executed, at least from the start of it. Give us a sense that if the Teesta water sharing agreement does in fact take place, how much of a big boost is this going to be to India-Bangladesh relations?
Yeah, certainly it would have positive impact on India-Bangladesh relations. The land boundary agreement has paved a way to strengthen the relations and resolve the other issues, like Teesta issue is one of them. In Teesta issue, I would like to have 2 points here. One is that if you are looking the catchment area and an irrigated area of the two rivers, the 80% lies in Indian side and 20% lies in Bangladesh side. That is also a very important factor. Second, what was the problem? Problem was the procedural problems in Indian side, in fact. If you are looking the example of 1996 Ganges Water Treaty, that central government has asked the state government to initiate the process. That time CM Jyoti Basu was leading the negotiations. I think this time the procedural problems had been taken place. The Mamata Banerjee had faced more political problems in that, and she has made it a personal issue in a way, because because she has appointed a Rudra Kalyan committee to expedite and to explore the possibilities of sharing Teesta water to Bangladesh. But the report has not been yet declared open for the public or for the. It means that there is less technical, less river water issues are involved. It is more personal and political issues are there. Second point, if we are actually questioning entire issue of India's water policy, if you are going into Bangladesh, what Bangladesh has does Bangladesh has a water policy? Does Bangladesh really helps India in resolving and sharing the water issues? Because if I remember, in 1972 they have proposed a dam in Rajbari district of Bangladesh. It is not yet executed at all. Again, in Sheikh Hasina in 2012 has said that we will build a dam there. So Bangladesh doesn't have any water policy, and they are asking India that you manage the water so that we can have free water in Bangladesh and that can go and flow into Bay of Bengal. That kind of, I think Indian government should also ask Bangladesh government to better manage its water within Bangladesh territory. That is also a very important issue. Certainly land boundary agreement was, I said that it has resolved the humanitarian and civil rights, that 51,000 people's civil rights and the citizenship was one of the was affected earlier. For last 60 years they were not at all, they were stateless people in others' territory. The humanitarian issues has been resolved, and of course the security issue, national security issue was very much involved. Tomorrow that the border guard, the head of the border guards, two border guards are meeting, and they are taking the issue of the illegal migrations, cattle trafficking, Indian fake currency rackets across the border, and these enclaves were the hubs of all these activities. I think that resolving this land boundary agreement would definitely help India to strengthen its security and modernize its security on border areas, because we have many projects on border areas, like border area development project was started in 1987, but we hardly progressed because there were problems. We could not do the developmental works of border areas because of the border guideline principles of 1975. There were resolving this land boundary agreement would help us to strengthen, modernize our security mechanism in the border area, and that would definitely help the border area developmental programs, and border area people will be affected, and it would develop a trust, confidence among the people of the two countries. They will have more joint border area development program in near future. So and it would open for other areas as well.
All right. Yes, of course, a lot of technicalities to be looked into the LBA. Perhaps that is why Modi and Mamata would be meeting on the 11th and 12th of August, taking a look at, of course, what needs to be done further and what to look forward ahead to the Teesta deal. What do you think about, just talking about the Modi and Mamata dynamics, Bharat sir, what do you say, has been, because we do know you couldn't call them best friends, but they were not even rivals in the sense. However, with her association with the Congress, you would think that Modi would have had problems with, trying to reach out to her. Just give us an idea of really what went through there, and in what way has Modi been able to break into, Mamata's psyche and actually work deals out?
Well, first of all, I would not see it in terms of individuals. I think increasingly when you are dealing with your neighboring countries, border states would have a role if trans-border resource sharing is involved. I think Mamata has also learnt from what happened in 2011. The Kalyan Rudra Committee was mentioned. The Kalyan Rudra Committee's water flows, to my information, are the same measurements as that of the Indian Water Commissioner and as that of the Bangladesh Water Commissioner. The reason that report is not being submitted is probably because it would embarrass Mamata, because she made big shindig about it and said that, West Bengal was being cheated. West Bengal is not being cheated. It's an interim agreement. Things continue as they are. That is one aspect. The second aspect is that Modi, after all, came on a platform of cooperative federalism. So he has that framework to support. You can, keep fighting elections and being adversarial in elections. But when it comes to dealing with your neighbors, you can't have that. You don't carry that adversarial approach forward. Having said that, I think what Ambassador Sikri said was very important. It's important that if you want Teesta, and Teesta is a big symbol in Bangladesh, Teesta interim agreement must be signed. Simultaneously, Sikkim and West Bengal must sign a water sharing agreement on Teesta, because otherwise you're going to have problems within India. The Kalyan Rudra Committee report must be submitted. It doesn't matter if that report supports Government of India's position, so be it. Agricultural needs should be taken into account, as she said. This area, northwestern Bangladesh, used to be a drought-prone area. Now it grows 3 crops, rice crops. Now, so is it worth it? Are you sort of creating problems for yourself by this kind of a cropping pattern? So I think a very important point once again. But please understand that Bangladesh will always be psychologically always be at a disadvantage because it's a lower riparian state. Water flows from India to Bangladesh, not from Bangladesh to India. And therefore, as a bigger country, upper riparian country, it is our responsibility to psychologically satisfy them that, look, you're not being cheated. A 50-50% sharing is a good model, and let's follow it on other rivers, and I hope it is.
Yes, hopes are high, of course, in Bangladesh and, of course, parts of India as well, that this deal will perhaps be signed very soon. 11th and 12th of August is when, of course, we'll be seeing what eventually happens in that Modi and Mamata meeting. Rajya Sabha TV, of course, will be tracking all developments. That's it, of course, on the big picture here. Thank you to all my guests for joining me and, giving us a clear idea of what to look forward to and also taking us through the history, really, of the Teesta Water Sharing Agreement. Thank you so much for joining us. News continues in just a bit. Do stay with us.